get rid of fear. It can be an engine to motivate you and make you work hard. But at a certain point, though, fear can hold you back. It's easy to get complacent and to start thinking, man, I've done all right, I'm comfortable. Let me not risk trying to do something I'm not sure I can do. Sometimes you fail, but sometimes you succeed.
Right.
And you can learn from both, as long as you're willing to be self-critical and kind of evaluate when things don't work, that you don't need to be afraid.
Imagine being a kid from Honolulu, Hawaii, with the dream to become president of the United States. You're raised by a single mother living paycheck to paycheck, but with the help of your grandparents and academics, you go on to graduate from Columbia University and Harvard School of Law. You moved to Chicago at 24 years old to serve as a community organizer and eventually become Illinois State Senator. You capture the world's attention with your keynote speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. Shortly after that, you make history as the first African-American president serving 2 terms. Today, you are regarded as one of the most influential leaders in modern history, a great father and husband who expanded healthcare to millions, rescued the economy from a Great Recession, and will continue to inspire the world for many generations. My name is VicBlends, and this is DeepCut with Barack Obama. Thank you to the sponsor of this episode, GetJoy, the best way to feed your dog fresh and wholesome meals, backed by Animal Vet Nutritionist. Click the link down below and get 60% off your first auto ship box with the code VIC60. Now let's get back into the episode.
Vic,
What's going on?
how you doing, man?
Mr. President, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Welcome to the shop, man. I'm
Thank
good.
you. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you
you being here.
All right, this is my spot right here.
It's you right here.
This is a nice setup you got here.
Hey, man, we
Little
gotta,
candle and all
make
that?
it cozy,
All right.
man.
Okay. I see you.
How you feeling?
I feel good. How you been?
Blessed, man. Blessed.
Man, I've been reading about all the stuff you've been doing.
Yeah, you checked in?
I have.
I appreciate that.
It's impressive.
Thank you. I can say the same for you.
I appreciate you. So, when did you start cutting hair?
When I was 17,
So you were 17, you decided, you know what, I think I can pull this off.
well, I thought I was gonna go to college, so
Okay.
barbering was gonna be a side hustle.
Right.
I was gonna go make $5, $10 in the dorm. I started,
sense.
felt a passion. God told me if I took it serious, it would open doors for me. I decided to go and follow that dream.
That's it. So, and at what point did you get your own chair, your own shop?
As soon as I graduated high school, I decided to go
Okay.
right to barber school instead of college and
All right.
pursue that. Got my license, got into the shop, and then somehow we're here.
Somehow we're here.
So real quick, how do you want to do your haircut today?
All right, so I keep it short. Nothing fancy, I don't do much of a line.
Yeah.
Basically, my regular barber, she just takes, whoop,
Yep.
goes with the goes with the grain.
Yep.
And I don't have a tight line. I leave it pretty natural.
Yeah.
So overall, just kind of like it is now, except, just clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah. It's probably been a long time since you had to explain what kind of haircut you wanted. I assume you've been with the same barber for a good amount of time.
Well, I had a guy named Zarif in Chicago, and then when I got elected president, he had some kind of hookup with some airline where he was willing to come once a week from Chicago to give me a cut. And so for 8 years, he cut my hair, and then that continued for about a year and a half, and then COVID happened. And since folks couldn't travel at that point, the whole thing was, all right, what are we gonna do now? Michelle's stylist, she says, you know what? I think I can pull this off. So she just took some clippers and started doing it. And it turned out that, she knew what she was doing too.
There we go, the rest is history.
Yeah.
You never tried a self-haircut during the pandemic?
Man, I'm not doing that. I'm still traumatized. When I was trying to figure out how old I was like 5 years old, 6 years old.
Yep.
And my grandfather, he decided, you know what? I don't know why I'm wasting money. I'm going to cut your hair myself.
There we go.
Except, this tells you how old I am. He had these, it wasn't even electric clippers.
Yep.
It was like these squeeze clippers.
Yeah.
Man, he was finished.
Oh, the squeeze joints.
Yeah, and he was finished. It looked like I had a bunch of rat bites in my hair.
How much was a haircut back in your day? Like 25 cents?
Man, I don't even know, but all I know is he was so cheap, he didn't even want to spend that. And, that experiment went badly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So ever since that time, look, I'm sure you know this, like, the relationship with your barber,
yeah,
that's like
we're breaking the golden rule right now.
We are. That shows how much respect I have for you, that you are even touching my head.
Thank you.
Man, which is why I had to do some investigation,
Yeah, it's cool.
I called up Secret Service. I said, what do you think? We did some deep research and we decided, you know what?
I had to cut.
He's not gonna mess it up too much.
I had to cut 5 service members just to prove that I was good enough to be here for this moment. So I want to kick this off. There's a very special question that I have asked majority of people that have sat in my chair.
Go ahead.
It's the most important place to start.
All right.
What is your name and what do you do?
My name is Barack Hussein Obama, and I am the ex-president of the United States. These days, I spend most of my time actually on my foundation. Michelle and I set up the Obama Foundation, and its goal is to lift up, promote, train, mentor the next generation of leaders, right? Because our attitude is that, the most important thing we can do is to empower young people, give them a sense of how they can bring about change, how they can have an impact, how they can deal with issues like poverty or healthcare or education. And so we train young people all across the United States, but also on every continent, Africa, Latin America, Asia, Europe. And that's how I'm spending most of my time. And I still spend a bunch of time writing. And right now I'm helping out the Vice President, Kamala Harris, to become the next president of the United States.
It's good, man. It's a very important time. So I want to ask, because for most people, if you were to be a basketball player,
right,
when you were young, you would see either Michael Jordan play, you would see LeBron.
When I was young, when I was really young, it wasn't Michael Jordan, it was Dr. J, man. So I'm going way back. I'm an old man.
So we were a hooper, we would see one of our favorite basketball players, and it would be the first impression of what a great player was.
Right.
But for the direction that you went into, what was your first time seeing a representation of what a great leader was?
Oh, that's interesting. So, when I was born in 1961. Mm-hmm. And so my earliest memories are tied to the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. And obviously Dr. King, Malcolm X, those were prominent leaders. John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. But the folks I think who inspired me the most, because I could relate to them, were the grassroots civil rights leaders. People who were working with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, mm-hmm. the Freedom Riders. Most of these, they were kids. I mean, they were, college students, people like John Lewis, and they would go and sit in lunch counters, and they're taking abuse, but they're showing people how dehumanizing Jim Crow was. Mm-hmm. They're riding buses, and sometimes they're getting beat up. In some cases, some died. They're knocking on doors in communities, trying to register people to vote. And I remember watching that, and I said to myself, you know what? To see young people take on those kinds of responsibilities and put themselves on the line on behalf of justice and equality and freedom, that was inspiring to me, and I could relate to it, right? Mm-hmm. You look at somebody like JFK or Dr. King, you're all like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be all that. Mm-hmm. But what I know I can do is I can march. I know I can, try to register people to vote. And so that's how I ended up, when I got out of college, I decided to become a community organizer. And that's how I moved to Chicago, was to work in low-income communities, trying to, see if I can give them a lift and work with local leaders, community leaders, just to try to make things a little bit better in those mm-hmm. local areas, mm-hmm. and that's really what inspired me initially. it wasn't until later that I said, all right, well, maybe I'll try to run for office. But that wasn't my initial inspiration.
Yeah. One thing that I admire is your self-belief.
Yeah.
For you to come as far as you've came,
Right.
you've had to believe that anything was possible for your life. I want to ask you, where does your self-belief come from? Was it something you were born with, or may have it been something that Miss Hefty instilled in you, your fifth grade teacher?
Okay, so you did your homework. Miss Hefty was a great fifth grade teacher, one of my favorites. And I had lived overseas for a couple of years. I'd moved back, and she was somebody who told me that my heritage, being half Kenyan, was something to be proud of because she had worked in Kenya. There were a bunch of teachers, coaches, people like that, but my biggest influence was my mother. She was a single mom, had me when she was very young. She was 18 when she had me. And, she just always let me know that, number one, nobody is better than you and nobody's worse than you. You treat everybody with respect. And she also told me that, you've got the skills if you put your mind to it to do meaningful things, as long as you work hard and you're accountable. And she gave me a lot of love. And, now my father wasn't around. And so, I'm not unusual in that sense. I didn't really know my father. I met him once when I was 10, and I really was with him for about a month, and that was it. And so for a young black teenager who didn't know his dad very well, I won't lie to you, when I was a teenager, I was, getting into some stuff. Spent a bunch of time. Loved basketball, liked chasing girls, got high. Didn't apply myself that hard in school, but that foundation that my mother had laid, that sense of responsibility, she taught me to love books, and she gave me confidence that if I did apply myself, I could get things done. So that by the time I'm 19, 20, I think some of the anger about my father not being around, some of my insecurities about what does it mean to be a responsible person, what does it mean to be a black man in America, a lot of those issues I began to get more serious about and, took more ownership over my life. And then, then you just learn from experience, right? What gives you confidence is you try things. Sometimes you fail, but sometimes you succeed.
Right.
And you can learn from both, right? When you succeed, you go, okay, I got that done because I was focused, I put in the work. When you fail, you realize I'll survive it. It's like I can bounce back, and that gives you confidence. And so I think my mother's values set me on the right direction, but then what happens is that you just start testing out those values in the world, and you see, what kind of impact you can have. And
that's right.
You get a little more impact. You decide, all right, well, let me try, and you just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I love that you said that things don't always go our way.
They definitely
There's going to be a point where we have to face adversity.
That's exactly right.
For you, I'm wondering, what was your biggest loss, and what did you learn from that?
Well, look, I mean, I've made so many mistakes. When I was a community organizer, I thought I was going to set the world on fire, and I did some really, useful things in the community on the south side of Chicago where I was working. But the truth is that for all the work I did there, I didn't end poverty in those communities. We might get a job training center started, but there was still a lot of unemployment. We might get a after-school program for kids set up, but there were still a lot of schools where kids weren't doing well. And in politics, at first I ran for the state senate, which is kind of the state legislature. But my first race where I ran for a congressional office, man, I got whooped. I ran against this guy, Bobby Rush. And he was really well known, and nobody really knew me. I was kind of an up and comer. People were all like, "Wait your turn." I was like, I'm gonna try this out. And I got beat by, 25 points or something. I mean, it was a spanking.
Yeah.
But that's an example of me realizing, all right, I didn't do my homework. I didn't think through. It wasn't the right race to run. And yet I learned a lot about how to present myself with other people, how to build coalitions. And I realized, I can survive a loss and bounce back. And so the next race I ran was for the U.S. Senate. I ended up winning that, spoke at the Democratic National Convention. And so it was only 2 years after I had lost that bad race that I ended up, speaking to the entire country, which tells you, you don't always know if you don't try what you might be able to accomplish.
You'll miss every shot you don't take.
You got to take the shot, man.
I love the topic of learning.
Right.
Because life is a forever learning process.
Right.
I'm learning that now at 25 years old. But I
don't even remember what 25 was like, man. You way ahead of the game.
I appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was the last thing that you learned about yourself?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, at this age, my kids are grown now. Michelle and I, we've been married 32 years. I would say that I'm continually learning something that I began to learn during the presidency, which is to get rid of fear. Like fear can be at your age, fear can be a motivator. It can make you hungry. You want to be significant. You want to do things. You're not sure if you can pull them off. So it can be an engine to motivate you and make you work hard. But at a certain point, though, fear can hold you back, because once you've accomplished a certain amount, then it's easy to get complacent and to start thinking, man, I've done all right, I'm comfortable. Let me not risk trying to do something I'm not sure I can do.
Yeah.
And I think it was, part of the reason why I'd say I was a much better president in my last 2 years in office than my first 2 years in office, even though I think I did a good job my first 2 years in office, was by that point I had gone through everything, right? I had some big victories, I'd had some big losses. People had called me all kinds of names. I had been in the public eye. I had made, I had said stupid stuff, and I'd been criticized for it. And, what you start realizing is that as long as you're operating from a baseline of integrity and you're doing your best, your motives are good, your intentions are right, as long as you're willing to be self-critical and kind of evaluate when things don't work, why they didn't work, that you don't need to be afraid.
Yes, sir.
And that's going to hold you back. And so now, even in small things, part of the reason kids are such quick learners, right?
Yep.
Like a little baby, if they were afraid to fall, they'd never learn to walk, right? If they were afraid to sound stupid, they'd never learn to talk. As we get older, it becomes harder. But now, part of what I do is I push myself sometimes to do things that are outside my comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So...
One thing that I've been teaching myself as of lately is just not to operate in fear-based decisions. But when I will come across a situation, instead of saying, man, what's the worst thing that could happen? Right. Rephrase it to what is the best thing that could happen in this situation.
Exactly.
So I hope the best thing right now is for me to get the approval of showing you this.
All right, let's see how it's looking.
Just let me know if I cleaned you up. Here we go.
Come on, man. Oh, that's tight. See? And it's good because I might be on TV later, so now I know. Because people look at it, and if it was all janky, if you had messed it up, folks would talk about you. They'd say, man.
I might get a couple words.
No, but this is tight. Looks good, man. See,
I think you look like Barack Obama with this haircut, man.
That's the thing. It's the Obama cut right there.
I must say, speaking of TV, you sound just like you do on TV.
I know. The people have been hearing me for a long time. I've been saying a lot of words.
That's right.
I've been saying a lot of words.
For me, and why I think this moment particularly special, not just being able to talk to you, but I've never voted in a presidential election.
Right.
Because I just have never had faith in politics.
Right.
For me, it's hard to trust another person to take care of my people in my community. And I've always believed in being the change that you want to see.
Right.
Which is why I get up every day, I fight the good fight instead of waiting. So for this being the first time that I will be voting, what advice would you give to me to start to find a way of figuring out what candidate aligns with my values?
I think that's a great question. And obviously, there are a lot of folks in your situation, right? So, the question's something that I think a lot of people have on their minds. Here's one way to think about it, is that politics is basically how do we as a society make decisions about how resources are allocated, what's prioritized. And we have a representative government, which means we can't all just vote on every single decision about where's a stop sign gonna go, or what textbooks we're gonna use in school. So we gotta elect representatives to do that. And the way that I always advise people to approach it is, first and foremost, figure out what is it that you care about? What are your values? What are the issues that are important? What do you see in your community that's going on? Don't take for granted that the way it is the way it has to be. We have the power collectively to make different decisions. And so once you have a sense of what's important to you and what you care about, the next step is to start looking into who is it that's making these decisions, and who do I think aligns with my values and my priorities and my interests.
That's right.
Right? So, and that happens at a bunch of different levels, right? So the mayor or the city council, they're the ones that are gonna make decisions about garbage pickup, or police departments, and where money goes to parks. School boards might make decisions about what curriculum is being taught in school. You go up a little higher at the state level. They're making decisions about roads. They're making decisions about, what happens if there's a hurricane or a tornado. How is emergency relief provided? You go up a step higher from that, now you're at the national level. And you have members of Congress. They're the ones who are supposed to advocate for your community specifically. And you've got senators who are going to be representing your entire state. And then you've got the President of the United States, who's going to be operating the entire federal government and is supposed to look out for everybody. So in any election, you can just Google and look up and find out, all right, what is Kamala Harris proposing and what does she stand for? What is Donald Trump proposing and what does he stand for? What are the people who are running for Senate or running for Congress? What do they stand for? And part of what you want to do is to see, given how you feel about various issues, are they speaking to it in a way that you can relate to, that resonates with you? Now, one last thing I think is important as you're making up these decisions, because I talk to a lot of folks your age. I remember when my daughters were first voting. You can't expect politics to solve every problem, right? So you're right to say to yourself, I have to be the change I want. You still have to do what you need to do in your communities. Politics is not going to solve every problem. You can have the best person. I think I was a good president, but I didn't end racism in America. I didn't end, poverty in all corners of America. What I did do, though, because I think I was aligned with the issues that the communities, many people across the country care about, needing healthcare, needing job training, wanting to make sure that their kids, if they want to go to college, can afford it. I focused on those issues and I made them a little bit better. So I passed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. 50 million people ended up getting health care because of that. Another 50 million who had pre-existing conditions, who were already sick, or had an illness in the past and were having trouble getting health insurance. Now insurance companies had to give them coverage and treat them fairly. So I improved and made better that particular problem that people had.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes with young folks, they look around and somebody's president, let's say Joe Biden's president right now, and they look and they say, well, you know what, the community doesn't seem like it's that different than it was.
Yeah.
But what you're missing is that they're making some things better. Somebody's got medicine or healthcare that didn't have it before. Somebody got a job that didn't have it before. And usually progress is made slowly in that way, a little bit at a time. But if somebody is operating on a basis that aligns with your values, they seem trustworthy, they operate in an honest way, they're working hard, they're taking the job seriously, that's the basis by which you can then make a decision.
So as I'm finding the things that align most with me when I'm trying to make this decision, given Trump's promises to expand qualified immunity for police officers, in the light of a tragic situation like Sonia Massey, who has called for police help in her own home and was shot and killed, what are ways that we can help with reform for specific police brutality while ensuring accountability still? Because particularly the national leadership is heading in the opposite direction.
Well, but this is a good example, all right? So let's take police misconduct, racial bias inside the criminal justice system. That's something that a lot of people care about, a lot of young people care about. So you start off by looking at somebody like Kamala Harris, who worked as a district attorney, worked as an attorney general. Her record is somebody who is fair, who believes in dealing with violent criminals in a serious way, but also doing it in a lawful way, in a responsible way, giving people who are caught up in, let's say, the drug trade, but in a nonviolent way, giving them diversionary programs, et cetera. So she's got a track record of thinking about the criminal justice system in a responsible way. On the other hand, you got Donald Trump. Here's a guy who, this is before you were born, Central Park 5. He was a private citizen, took out a full-page newspaper saying, execute these guys who were accused of killing or brutally assaulting this jogger in New York. It turned out they were innocent. He didn't care. He never apologized. He never went back and said, I shouldn't have done that. Now he's going around saying to police officers, you should have immunity and do whatever you want to deal with these folks.
That's a scary thought.
So right off the bat, your first point is that guy does not align with my values in terms of how I think about it.
Yeah.
And if I'm making a decision and that's an issue that's important to me, I'm not going to vote for that guy, right? Regardless of what else he's talking about. So that's point number one. Point number two, though, and this is something that I want everybody to remember, most criminal justice and most police departments, those issues are not decided at the federal level, they're decided at the state and local levels, which means that when you vote, you can't just vote for president. You also have to look at who's the district attorney in your area, who has responsibility for prosecuting police officers if they don't act right. A lot of times that might be at the city level. So you still have to also vote for these other folks. I'll give you one example, though. When I was president, only about 10%, 15% of crimes are federal crimes and involve the federal prison system. And so I talked to my Attorney General, Eric Holder. I said, look, we want to treat violent crime seriously, but for nonviolent crime, let's tell the U.S. attorneys all across the country that their goal, and they'll be promoted on the basis of whether they go for a just and proportional sentence rather than the max sentence. And because of that policy, we ended up seeing during my presidency the prison population go down and the crime rate go down at the same time. So that didn't solve all the problems of mass incarceration or police misconduct, but it created a system in which I was respectful to police. I always said we need good policing. We need policing that knows the community, that works with local businesses and parents, et cetera. police play a vital role, and the majority of police are doing a great job and a tough job. But we're gonna make sure that up and down the system, we're treating everybody legally and we're treating everybody justly. Kamala Harris has shown that same approach. That's how I would be thinking about that issue.
Right. Thank you for educating me on that. One thing that is also very close to me is I just don't know how, as a society, we've gotten to the point where we're dehumanizing immigrants. I have an immigrant mom, and if it wasn't for the sacrifices that she made, or the other amazing immigrants that are helpful in our communities, how do we, and especially as a man of faith that hurts, how do we heal this divide?
Look, the way I always think about it is this is a nation of immigrants and it is a nation of loss. I mean, the truth is, unless you are a Native American, an indigenous American, somebody somewhere behind you came from someplace else. And so we take pride in the fact that this is the only country on earth where everybody's coming from every corner of the world. They want to be here, be part of that American dream. That's a positive thing. What we also want is it should be orderly and lawful. We want people to, apply. We want them to come in. And not everybody's going to do that because some folks are desperate. If they're living in Honduras or El Salvador or other places, that they may, or for that matter, Ireland or Poland, they may want to just get here for a better life, even if they don't go through the exact right process. And what we have to do is to set up a serious system at the border to control it so people aren't just coming in any which way. But we also have to acknowledge, look, there are 10, 11 million people who have put roots down here. However they came, they're now functioning as Americans. Many of them have American kids. What's the pathway to citizenship for them? And how do we control our border in a way that's orderly? That's what I tried to do when I was president. That's what Kamala Harris is proposing. When Donald Trump starts talking about, we're gonna round every illegal immigrant in this country up, that's 11, 12 million people. You're gonna round those people up and put them in camps? And he starts suggesting that anybody who doesn't look like him, some folks coming from Mexico, they're all rapists and drug dealers, and then you start making stuff up about how they're eating folks' cats and dogs. And
it sucks to hear.
Yeah, again, that's an example of somebody who doesn't seem to understand just the basic values of treating people with respect. Listen, to me, this is such a clear choice. This man does not respect you. He does not see you. He doesn't think you are equal to him and the people that he considers to be quote unquote real Americans. And in that situation, that is something that somebody who does not respect you should not represent you.
Absolutely.
And I think on an issue like immigration, look, Kamala Harris, it's not as if she doesn't take it seriously. She supported, there was actually a bill in Congress that was supported by Republicans and Democrats to tighten the borders, make the borders more secure, but also manage this in a more humane way. And even though there was bipartisan support, Donald Trump told Republicans to vote against it, not because he necessarily thought that it wasn't going to help, but because he thought, well, if you start solving the problem, I won't have an issue to run against. And you don't want somebody representing you that not only disrespects you, but also is willing to play politics with issues that, have a huge impact on people's lives.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So it's a section of the show. It's called Quick Cuts. Now, these are quicker questions.
I can do these. I can do these quick.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious, and I would love your advice. I've heard that you're a romantic, and
Absolutely.
I can't release the exact day, but I am very soon to be engaged.
That's so exciting, man.
It is. I could cry thinking about it, but how did you know that you were in love with Michelle?
Now, first of all, how long y'all been going out?
Going on 4 years.
All right, so that's a decent stint. you know, I think early relationship go through phases. You know, there's the initial burst of, man, oh, she's fine, she's cute, she's funny, you know, we're clicking, right? And you have that kind of quick initial burst. And I felt that with Michelle, and sounds like you felt that with your lady.
She made you nervous?
Yeah. Well, you wake up. I still remember with Michelle, you know, you go out, you have a nice time, you wake up, you're thinking about her, right? And you kind of, man, I want to talk to her again today, right? I'm not going to be playing those games where let 3 days pass and then I'm going to call you. No, I'm going to call today. So
did y'all write each other letters back in the day?
Yeah. You know, we did actually, because it was sort of long distance. I was dating her in the summer, and then I had to go back to law school. She was still in Chicago. I was in Cambridge, and so you go through that phase. But the reason I'm mentioning phases is you then go through that second phase where you have the first fight. You're getting on her nerves about something because you know you're doing something foolish. Then you make up, and you realize, oh, I'm kind of deepening the commitment, right? You start getting to know her parents, all that stuff. Then you have to make a decision. All right, now that she knows me and I know her, are we willing to put in the work to make this thing last? Because it's not always going to be romance. Sometimes it's going to be, especially once you have kids, man, it's hard. You know, you get tired, you're working, you're worn out.
I'm excited to be a dad.
Yeah.
My dad is one of my biggest inspirations.
That's great.
Very excited.
Yeah. So, but I'm warning you, you may be excited, but changing diapers and kids crying and you trying to,
tough. I know,
you got your hustle on, and it puts a strain on the budget. So if you, and it sounds like you're at this point, if in addition to the romance, you also respect the other person and you think they're going to be a good partner, like they're your ride and die. They'll be with you even when things aren't going well. You'll maintain respect for each other even when you're not feeling sexy. Mm-hmm. That is what is going to be the foundation to make it last. And the thing I always say to brothers I'm talking to, remember that they will be raising your children. And so, you have to have that kind of foundational sense of this is a solid person who I love and respect, but also that they're responsible and they take that role seriously. And one thing I knew right away about Michelle, even in that first summer where we were dating, you could just tell she loved kids, she loved family, she was looking forward to being a mom. And so I knew, and she, she was smarter than I was. So I said, you know what, Mike, I know I'm gonna have some good kids if I'm marrying her, and improve your DNA, man, and improve your gene pool.
You got two amazing daughters, man. It's
they're doing
been
great.
Awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them.
Thank you. You helped me check all the boxes,
all
man.
Right, there you go.
For me next, man, mental health is one of the biggest issues today. Right. Something I struggle with. I've been diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder. Right. So, but I'm just curious for you, what outlets have you found for yourself to give you peace just outside of your job?
When I was your age, I actually kept a journal, and I'd write about my thoughts and what I was going through, challenges, ideas, inspiration that I was getting. I'd write that stuff down more as just a way to develop a good habit of having a good conversation with myself about understanding the world around me and how I was acting and things I wanted to improve, things I wanted to, mistakes I made. The act of writing for me was helpful in just giving myself a framework. Nowadays, so I developed, I think, a good habit of having a good conversation with yourself, that voice inside your head. Not beating yourself up all the time about stuff, but coaching you in a way that makes you feel positive and able to go in a forward direction. And the other thing I've been very good at is working out, I used to play ball. I stopped because
I could tell.
I mean, for an old guy, I'm holding up. I worry about my Achilles, so I stopped playing basketball. But I still work out every day. First thing, I eat pretty good. I think we underestimate how much mental health is affected by, are we taking care of our body?
Routine is one of the biggest things. It is the biggest thing.
Getting enough sleep, eating properly. I'm pretty good about that stuff. The sleep part, I'm not always as good as I need to be. And the other thing is having friends, man. I worry about your generation, partly because of social media. Then you guys went through COVID.
There's nothing better than a handshake, but that is a uncommon thing nowadays.
You look at some of these surveys where, like, people, they think maybe they've got one good friend. You have like 20% of people saying, I don't have a single good friend. And one thing I've been good about it throughout my life is I probably have 20 people in my life who, if I was in real trouble, if I messed up, Michelle kicked me out of the house, I was scandalized in some way, and I came knocking on their door, they'd be all right, bro, come on. Here's a couch.
Yep.
We'll set you up. People you can really count on, whether you're up or down.
Yeah.
Having that kind of community of friends is critically important. Isolation, or even virtual relationships, is not the same as people who you see regularly, you laugh with, you do things with, but you do have to invest in that.
Absolutely.
And
it takes
something, you have to go out of your way. If you meet somebody who gives you a positive energy, who's a good person, who makes you laugh, taking the time to figure out, all right, let me see that person once a month. Mm-hmm. Let me, if I see a concert that I enjoy, come on, let's go. Yeah. Me and my lady,
it takes effort to be a friend on both sides.
Exactly. And that will boost up your mental health, because we're social animals, man. We operate better when we have others with us to share both our joys and our pains with.
We're here to serve the needs of other people. So my next question, with everything that happened over this summer, with the Big Three conversation,
right?
Now that the smoke has settled a bit, do you think Kendrick Lamar is taking the #1 spot?
Kendrick is a friend of mine. I've been knowing him for a long time. He actually performed at the White House. I was the first. I think I'm pretty confident in saying that not that many presidents were familiar with hip hop before I was president.
You definitely are the coolest.
And I do think that Kendrick has a unique status right now, not just because of this summer, but he's not just gifted. He's serious about the message he tries to. He digs into himself. He digs deep. You'd enjoy Kendrick because he's, when we get together, he wants to talk about fatherhood. Yeah. He wants to talk about, those are the questions he's talking about. He's got a couple of young kids, and he's taking that very seriously.
I enjoy Kendrick, but not to be biased, but the greatest rapper of all time is from my city.
Yes.
I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Go ahead, man.
J. Cole.
I just talked to Jay last week.
The greatest of all time.
Jay is very high on the list. Now,
top two, not number two.
I will say that, there's a guy named Jay-Z from closer to my generation.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Come on, man.
He's a cool guy.
All right. We've been having a good conversation. Let's not, this is a lot, but look, this is a lot like the MJ versus the LeBron conversation.
Right. Jermaine Cole.
He is from your hometown. I respect you rolling with him.
It's not a bias.
No. Listen, Jay, I've had Jay at the White House. He's outstanding. J. Cole's outstanding.
That's right. So, I have final two questions for you, real quick. What do you think about LeBron and Bronny stepping on the court together for the first time?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, First of all, the fact that LeBron can even move at 40, basically.
It's impressive.
It's more than impressive. It's a freak of nature phenomenon that's going on. He's still playing at such a high level. And for him to be able to share that with his son is remarkable. And you know, I haven't met Bronny. I probably met him when I was really young, but I haven't met him recently. By all accounts, you know, he's trying to earn his spot. He's working hard. He's doing the right thing. He's a good young man. So I wish them all the best. What a joy that must be.
Right. So this question has been asked you before.
Yeah.
And we're clear on your answer, but different accolades have now came since the last time you've answered.
Go ahead.
Does all-time leading scorer and playing with your son sway your GOAT decision?
No, man, it's just like you with J. Cole. I'm from Chicago, and MJ, you know, remains the GOAT. I will say this, that if you're just looking at, let's say, a 10-year slice, I would say that MJ's peak was higher than LeBron's. I have to give credit to LeBron's longevity. And so they are both great in slightly different ways, and they're both champions. So, you know, it's so, you know, you're always going to be attached to the folks who were your guys.
Yeah, your people. I get it.
You know,
I get
and
it.
each generation's going to have the folks who they love. You talk to some grandfather out there, he'll talk about Bill Russell, won 11 championships. It's hard to argue with somebody who won 11 championships, and he was great. But
playing with your son is just cherry on top.
It is a cherry on top.
It's cherry on top.
All right, listen, you're not going to get an argument out of me right now.
That's all good.
All right.
Yo, I just wanted to tell you, thank you for this moment. Being a kid from Fayetteville, North Carolina, starting to cut hair in my mom's garage,
Right.
as things that we dream of and pray for, when they're actually here, it's a surreal moment. And this has been one of the greatest times of my life, being able to share this with you.
Listen, I am so impressed with what you're doing. Keep doing it. Good luck on the proposal. I'm not going to ask you what you're going to do exactly because I don't want to spoil any surprises. My only advice is don't do it on a jumbotron. You want to do it in private, you know. So but I'm sure it's going to go great. And you know, I can tell that you love her and you're excited about fatherhood. You know, I can only hope it's going to go well. I will close with this. We do have an election coming up. And hopefully I gave you a sense of why I think Kamala Harris is the right choice. Do your own homework. I do want everybody to vote and remind themselves that, you know, the person who's leading this country is going to help shape the future of your kids and your grandkids. And, you know, having someone there who sees everybody, respects everybody, cares about everybody, you know, that is going to be, you know, really important in making sure that your kids, your grandkids, grow up in the kind of America that I think we both believe in. So just make sure everybody gets out there and votes, all right?
I'm excited. It's my first time voting for the president.
It's going to be great, man.
I'm going to make a decision that follows my heart, and I appreciate this moment.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. That was fantastic. Let's take a photo.